The airline industry calls for urgent financial support from the government if it says it's to survive another long period of travel curbs. It comes after tougher restrictions on arrivals were announced, which the government said would protect the public from new variants of COVID-19. Also on tonight's programme. India's undertaking a huge coronavirus vaccination programme begins in the country with a target of 300 million people to be inoculated by August. Joe Root hits a double century, but England doesn't have it all their own way in Sri Lanka.
Hello, Your Royal Highness.
Good morning, everybody.
And the Duke of Cambridge speaks to NHS staff and volunteers, praising all those involved in the UK's COVID-19 vaccine rollout. Hello, very good evening to you. The airline industry says it needs urgent financial support from the government if it is to survive another long period of travel curbs. The call comes after the government announced tougher COVID-19 restrictions. From Monday, most people coming into the UK will have to quarantine. Tonight, the government said it was committed to getting the industry back to full strength as soon as it was safe to do so. Here's our business correspondent, Katie Austin.
We're being told to stay home now, but last summer travel corridors helped holidays happen. Now the system, which removes the requirement to quarantine when arriving from a list of places, is about to be suspended. Jeff is working in Bahrain. Hi, Jeff.
Hello, how are you?
He's due to fly to Britain when his contract ends in a fortnight, but hasn't yet sorted accommodation. The rule change means he'll now have to provide authorities with an address to self-isolate at.
So it means that we do need to secure a place to stay before we leave here. The main concern is that with the situation, with the different the new regulations, if you like, that are in place, is that we will see some flight cancellations.
The halt to travel corridors is the latest restriction to be introduced. It means that from Monday, people arriving into the UK from anywhere must quarantine for 10 days. Or they can take a COVID test on the 5th day, pay for it, and if it's negative, they can leave quarantine early. The rules do apply to Eurostar and to seaports as well, but not to some jobs like hauliers and not to people travelling within the UK and Ireland. Also from Monday, the requirement kicks in to show a negative COVID test within 72 hours of departing to come to the UK. There have been fresh calls for urgent, targeted additional support for the aviation and aerospace sectors, which have suffered badly already. The aviation minister accepted it was a difficult time for them, but said support had been available.
The most important thing for all of the travel industry is that we're able to get people out and about travelling again safely as soon as possible. And it's what we're doing with the vaccine, the massive rollout of over 3.2 million jabs. That's what offers the real prospect of better times for the aviation industry and the whole of the travel industry.
Labour said the government should have acted earlier. Groups representing the travel industry accept the need for rules to tighten, but are asking where things go from here.
We're saying to the government that they need to look at all of the measures that they've got in place for travel at the moment and all of those restrictions, and actually come up with a plan to move forward so that when restrictions are start to lift, that there is a clear plan in place.
For many travel and holiday companies, the light at the end of the tunnel is still looking distant.
Well, Katie, as you can see, joins us. So what help might be available and for whom?
Well, the kind of measures already in place that the government has pointed to include extending the furlough scheme to the end of April, business rates relief and tax deferrals. This evening, the aviation minister has tweeted that in recognition of the impact the travel corridors closing will have on the aviation sector, a scheme to provide support to airports and ground operations specifically would now open this month. Now, that had previously been announced in November, but without a date. Now, the aim of it is to provide grants of up to £8 million for each applicant to cover fixed costs, things like business rates, and grants would hopefully, the government says, reach these applicants by the end of the financial year. The Airport Operators Association, which obviously represents airports, said yesterday that a lot of its members were running on fumes and urgently needed more support. Tonight it's welcomed what the Aviation Minister has said about the grant scheme. It said it's welcomed the opportunity coming soon to see more detail, but that a further support package will still be needed because this will only see its members so far.
OK, all right, thank you. Well, the latest government figures show there were 41,346 new coronavirus infections recorded in the latest 24-hour period. It means, on average, the number of new cases reported per day in the last week is 48,565, a sign that the cases are beginning to fall, perhaps across the UK. An average of 35,882 people in hospital with coronavirus. That's over the 7 days to Thursday. 1,295 deaths were reported. That's people who died within 28 days of a positive COVID-19 test. On average, in the past week, 1,103 deaths were announced every day. The total number of deaths so far across the UK, 88,590. And as you know, the UK has now started its programme of mass vaccinations. 324,233 people now have had their first dose of one of the three approved COVID-19 vaccines in the latest 24-hour period, taking the overall number then of people who've had their first jab to just over 3.5 million. Now, a huge coronavirus vaccination programme has begun in India with a population of almost 1.4 billion. India has reported over 10.5 million coronavirus cases. That's more than any other nation except the United States. The government hopes to inoculate 300 million people by August. From Delhi, our South Asia correspondent Rajini Vaidyanathan reports.
In a nation of well over 1 billion people, 34-year-old hospital cleaner Manish Kumar became the first to receive a coronavirus vaccine.
The fear in my mind has gone. Everyone should get the vaccine, as this is how we save our country.
The country's Prime Minister Narendra Modi used a virtual address to kick off what he described as the world's largest immunisation programme. Frontline and healthcare workers take priority in the initial rollout. At this hospital in Delhi, they were given the red carpet and red roses. Dr. Puneet Jetli, who's treated countless COVID patients, also got the vaccine today.
How are you feeling now you've had the vaccine?
I'm feeling absolutely safe and absolutely fit and absolutely fine. Very joyous, very ecstatic.
This is one of around 3,000 vaccination centres which have been set up across India. Here and elsewhere, they're hoping to vaccinate around 100 people a day. So if you do the maths, that means that India's aiming to vaccinate more than 300,000 people every day. But as the day drew to a close, the government said it had only reached 2/3 of that target. Known as the pharmacy of the world, India is the global leader in vaccine manufacturing. The Oxford AstraZeneca Covishield jab, produced in the city of Pune, is one of 2 being rolled out. The second, Covaxin, developed by an Indian company, Bharat Biotech, is yet to pass its phase 3 trials, which means, even though officials say it's safe, we still don't know how effective it is. There's been widespread concern its approval was rushed. Junior doctors at a Delhi hospital told me they won't be taking it yet.
The phase 3 efficacy data is not out yet for Covaxin, which is being administered here. Doctors, we believe in science. So at this moment, we will not be going for Covaxin. We don't want to be the guinea pigs.
Persuading people to take the vaccine is just one challenge in a nation hit hard by COVID-19. Here, they're burning a coronavirus effigy to celebrate the start of the vaccine drive. It's been a dark year for this vibrant nation. Today, Indians are hoping they've turned a corner. Rajini Vaidyanathan, BBC News, Delhi.
Now, Uganda's president has been re-elected by a large majority. President Museveni, who's been in power for 35 years, secured nearly 59% of the vote in Thursday's poll. That's according to electoral officials. The main opposition candidate, Bobi Wine, had alleged fraud, but the president insisted the result was fair.
On account of the thumbprint identification machines, this may turn out to be the most cheating-free election in the 58 years of Uganda's independence.
The UK, France and Germany are warning Iran against carrying out work on uranium metal-based fuel if it wants to preserve the 2015 Iran nuclear deal. It comes as the US, which pulled out of the deal in 2018, imposed new sanctions on companies dealing with Iran in the final few days of Donald Trump's presidency. Now, a volcano in Indonesia has erupted, spewing smoke and ash some 3 miles up into the atmosphere. The Semeru Mountain in East Java, one of the nearly 130 active volcanoes in Indonesia. It's not yet known whether anyone has been injured or indeed evacuated from the area. Time for the sport with Carthy Nyanasigram at the BBC Sports Centre. Hi, Carthy.
Hello, Kate. Thank you very much. After an excellent double century from England's Test cricket captain Joe Root, there was quite the comeback today from Sri Lanka. The hosts finished day 3 on 156 for 2 in their second innings. England, though, still lead in goal by 130 runs. Joe Wilson watched the action.
The match is not yet England's, but Saturday morning was Joe Root's.
A wide grin from one of the greats of English cricket.
By the time he finally made a mistake,
straight to deep mid-wicket.
Well, he'd made 228. A monumental innings. It felt like a match-winning performance, but not yet. Up the stairs, lunch, prepare to bowl. The home side batting again, 286 behind, with plenty to prove. Well, there is more to Sri Lanka than ducks. 4 noughts on the scorecard in the first innings, a strong start this time. And England suddenly had a problem. How to dismiss those who stubbornly remain? Well, Kusal Perera could have hit this anywhere. He found a fielder. Sometimes the luck's with you. Sometimes. 1 caught, now 1 dropped. Tiramani to Sibley and down.
That's a drop catch.
And the captain? Well, it's still a lovely view from up there. Sri Lanka's fight back continued as the skies darkened. England needed something before the close. Here it comes.
Oh, beauty!
Just a faint touch. Jack Leach's delivery found the batsman's glove. Kusal Mendis out. Sri Lanka will resume, still 130 behind. It's a contest. Well, it's a test match. Joe Wilson, BBC News.
It's time to pop out of the room if you don't want to know today's football results as match of the day and sports scene in Scotland. Follow soon on BBC One. Leicester have moved up to second place in the Premier League after goals from James Maddison and Harvey Barnes gave them a 2-0 win over Southampton. Chelsea beat Fulham to move up to 7th place. Brighton and West Ham also had 1-0 wins today, while Sam Allardyce had his first win with West Brom, beating Wolves 3-2. In the Scottish Premiership, second place Celtic drew 0-0 with Livingston. It was the same score for Hamilton and Dundee United, while there were wins for Hibernian, Ross County and St Johnstone. To rugby union, and with all European pool matches postponed, the only game to be played in the UK today was thankfully a Pro 14 thriller, with Glasgow Warriors beating Edinburgh by 23 points to 22, as Adam Wilde reports.
They call this the oldest intercity rugby match in the world. Since 1872, Glasgow have been taking on Edinburgh. But whilst age and tradition still count for plenty, youth too has its place. This was young Ross Thompson putting Glasgow ahead. And penalties were all either side had to show until shortly before the break. Jamie Farndale finding space for the first time, giving Edinburgh the lead. It took until the second half for Glasgow to wrestle back control. George Turner here, powering over. Even without the roar of the fans, it's clear this is a match that matters, and back came Edinburgh, storming through for Chris Dean to reduce the gap with a quite stunning try. Down the decades, there won't be many finishes to this fixture, as dramatic as what then followed. With just moments left, Aroni Sow squeezed in to bring Edinburgh to within a single point. A kick then to win it. A miss, and it's Glasgow's night in this oldest of rivalries. Adam Wilde, BBC News.
There's more on the BBC Sport website, including the latest on Heather Watson and almost 50 other tennis players being confined to their hotel rooms ahead of the Australian Open after a positive coronavirus case on their flights. Kate.
Carthy, thank you very much indeed. Before we leave you, the Duke of Cambridge has praised those involved in the coronavirus vaccine rollout in a video call with NHS staff and volunteers, describing the effort as a monumental moment. He also said he was proud of the Queen and Duke of Edinburgh for having their COVID-19 vaccinations. Here's Andy Moore.
Hello, Your Royal Highness.
Good morning, everybody.
Prince William spoke to a number of medics from different parts of what he called the world-leading NHS, all involved in the rollout of the vaccine.
I want to say huge congratulations to everyone involved in the vaccination programme because it looks tremendous. It really does. And I know what a massive difference it's going to make to everyone.
And the vaccine was making a massive difference to around 1,000 over 80s who were treated to organ music as they got their jabs at Salisbury Cathedral. These pensioners were keen to come forward, but the Prince was told that wasn't the same for everyone.
We do have vaccine hesitancy in some groups, Your Royal Highness. It's really important to kind of really get into communities.
The Prince said he was very glad that the Queen and Duke of Edinburgh had been inoculated at Windsor Castle earlier this month.
My grandparents have had the vaccine and I'm very proud of them for doing that. So it's really important that everyone gets their vaccine when they're told to.
That message seems to be getting through, with confirmation today that more than 3.5 million people in the UK have now been vaccinated. Andy Moore, BBC News.
Well, you can see more on all of today's stories on the BBC News channel, but that's all from me and the team here, so a very good night to you. Bye-bye.